Gaslighting. Imagine someone constantly telling you that you're crazy. At first, you dismiss it as you know who you are and you trust your own mind. But slowly, something changes. You begin to wonder, am I really too emotional? Do I overreact? Maybe I'm not as rational as I thought. As the doubt grows, a terrifying possibility begins to take root. What if they're right? This is gaslighting, a form of psychological manipulation meant to make you question your own reality. It goes beyond lying. It's the systematic replacement of truth with the manipulator's version of it. And the most dangerous part, by the time you start to realize something's wrong, if you ever do, you may already be under their control. The term comes from the 1944 film Gaslight, where a husband gradually convinces his wife she's losing her sanity. He dims the lights, then insists nothing has changed when she notices. His aim is to make her doubt her own senses until she relies entirely on him for what's real. But this isn't just a fictional story. Gaslighting is a real tactic used in toxic relationships, cults, politics, and even workplaces. It's effective because it distorts your sense of what's real. It begins subtly. The manipulator denies things they clearly did or said, even when there's proof. I never said that. You're imagining things. At first, you push back, but over time, constant denial begins to chip away at your confidence. Next, they question your thinking abilities. You're too sensitive. You always overanalyze. You're being dramatic. Eventually, you start doubting your own perspective and wondering if the problem is actually you. Then comes the emotional manipulation. When you react, they minimize your feelings. Why are you so upset? You always blow things out of proportion. The goal? To make you doubt whether your feelings are even valid. Over time, you find yourself apologizing when you did nothing wrong, suppressing your emotions and walking on eggshells. And finally, isolation. Gaslighters don't want outside influence interfering. They slowly distance you from friends and family. They're just putting ideas in your head. They don't understand you like I do. Eventually, the manipulator becomes your only source of reality. By this point, they no longer need to gaslight you. You've started doing it to yourself, doubting your instincts, dismissing your thoughts, and accepting their version of the truth. You silence yourself before your doubts even surface. Gaslighting is horrifying because it doesn't just twist your thinking, it reshapes your identity. It leads you to abandon your own voice and give someone else power over your mind. And by the time you realize what's happening, if you ever do, it can feel like escape is impossible. Because how do you fight back when you no longer trust your own reality? Emotional blackmail. There's a psychological tactic so powerful, it can make people betray their own values, remain in toxic relationships, and feel completely trapped, all without a single command. It's not mind control, it's not hypnosis, it's something more subtle and far more dangerous. It's emotional blackmail. The scariest part, most people don't even know it's happening. Imagine this. A mother says, "If you move away, I don't know how I'll survive." A partner insists, "If you really love me, you wouldn't question me." A friend claims, "After everything I've done for you, you owe me." These aren't simple guilt trips. They're strategic emotional traps. Emotional blackmail is when someone uses fear, guilt, or a sense of obligation to manipulate you into doing what they want. They won't demand it outright. Instead, they make it seem like saying no would be cruel, selfish, even harmful. And before you realize it, You're saying yes to things you never wanted, simply because saying no feels too painful or destructive. But this isn't limited to individuals. Entire systems and groups have thrived on emotional blackmail. Consider how organized crime works. Mob leaders don't just rely on physical threats. They play on loyalty, family bonds, and silent expectations. You're given a favor, a helping hand. But nothing is free. The unspoken rule is clear. If you don't return it, you've betrayed them. Walking away isn't just risky, it feels morally wrong. That's how deeply emotional blackmail can root itself. But you don't need a mob boss to experience it. It happens in relationships where one partner constantly threatens to leave unless they get their way. In families where one person controls others with mood swings or silent treatment. In workplaces where employees are made to feel guilty for setting healthy boundaries. And it always follows the same pattern. The demand, direct or subtle, is made. They want something. The pressure kicks in. Guilt, fear, or a sense of duty is triggered. They might act hurt, explode in anger, or pull away emotionally. The escape is offered. Do what I say, and everything will be okay. And just like that, you're stuck. Not because you can't say no, but because saying no feels like it will ruin everything. So how do you break the cycle? It begins with awareness. If your emotions are being turned against you, pause and reflect. If setting a boundary results in guilt tripping, threats, or emotional punishment, you're being manipulated. And the key to breaking free isn't arguing, justifying, or trying to explain yourself. It's refusing to play the game. Here's the harsh truth. Emotional blackmailers aren't seeking love, respect, or fairness. They're seeking control. And once they realize they can't control you anymore, they may escalate. But that's when you know you're finally breaking free. Brainwashing in the modern world. Today, we often see individuals so deeply influenced that they seem detached from reality, believing the unbelievable, defending the indefensible, and denying even the most obvious facts. But how does someone end up like this? What is brainwashing really? And how does such a powerful transformation occur? Brainwashing isn't just a concept from dystopian stories. It's one of the most effective psychological tools ever used. And the frightening truth is, no one is completely safe from it. Take one of the most shocking real-world examples, the Jonestown Massacre in 1978. Over 900 people, including many children, died after drinking poison at the command of cult leader Jim Jones. These weren't people who instantly followed a madman. They were manipulated gradually until their critical thinking was completely eroded. They believed they were choosing freely. That's what makes brainwashing so dangerous. It doesn't force you to change. It makes you want to. So how does it actually happen? Brainwashing follows a distinct pattern: isolation, destabilization, indoctrination, reinforcement. This step-by-step process is so effective that once it takes hold, breaking free can feel nearly impossible. Isolation. The first step is cutting the person off from other perspectives. When you limit what someone sees or hears, you control what they believe. Jim Jones achieved this by relocating his followers to a remote jungle, far from outside influence. In our daily lives, this can happen in media echo chambers, radical communities, or toxic relationships. Any space where only one narrative is allowed and repeated. Destabilization. The next step is to break down a person's mental resilience. This is done through fear, confusion, exhaustion, or constant emotional stress. Cults might use long, draining sermons or sudden punishments. Governments might create a never-ending sense of crisis, making people feel overwhelmed and in need of guidance. The more mentally drained a person becomes, the more they look to the manipulator for answers. Indoctrination. Once defenses are down, new beliefs are implanted. It's all about control through rewards and punishments. Agree, and you're praised. Doubt, and you're punished. In cults, questioning the leader could get you expelled. In society, challenging certain beliefs might lead to being shamed or excluded. Gradually, the person's thinking is rewired. What once felt unnatural now feels normal. Reinforcement. Finally, the new beliefs are constantly reinforced. Through group rituals, echo chambers, and identity-based loyalty, the manipulated mindset becomes part of who the person is. They no longer question the ideology, because now it feels like truth. And the scariest part? It doesn't feel like brainwashing when it's happening. It feels like enlightenment. That's why people remain loyal to abusive groups, fall into large-scale manipulation, or follow extreme ideologies without ever stopping to question them. How can you protect yourself? Step 1. Stay aware. Brainwashing works by making you believe that questioning is unnecessary or even dangerous. If you ever feel pressured not to ask questions, take it as a warning sign. Step 2. Seek diverse viewpoints. If you're only hearing one side of a story, you're being shaped, even if you can't see it. Step 3. Watch for emotional manipulation. Fear, guilt, and outrage are powerful tools used to shut down logical thinking. When your emotions are being stirred to push a belief, pause and ask, who gains from me thinking this way? Because once your mind is reshaped, you may not even realize it's happened. Public shaming. For centuries, public shaming has been one of the most powerful tools used to control people. It strips individuals of their dignity, alienates them from their communities, and turns them into cautionary tales. Whether it's villagers jeering at someone locked in the stocks, or an online mob tearing down a person's reputation, the underlying psychology hasn't changed. Public shaming isn't just about punishing someone. It's about breaking them. It's meant to crush their identity until they start to accept their own downfall. One of the most chilling examples in history, the Salem witch trials of 1692. Innocent people, mostly women, were dragged into the public spotlight, accused of witchcraft, and pressured to confess under unbearable stress. These accusations weren't grounded in evidence but fueled by mass hysteria and fear. Once someone was accused, reason vanished, and the crowd sealed their fate. Why does public humiliation work so effectively? Because it taps into one of the most primal human fears, social rejection. As social beings, our survival has always depended on belonging to a group. In ancient times, being cast out from the tribe often meant death. Today, while we're not exiled physically, public humiliation triggers that same fear of being isolated, despised, and powerless. And it doesn't just happen in courtrooms or online. It happens in workplaces, when a boss ridicules an employee in front of others, in classrooms, where students are shamed for getting something wrong, in relationships, when one partner humiliates the other to assert control. Public shaming is a power move. It makes the target feel small, weak, and dependent on those who hurt them. But here's the darker twist. After the humiliation, many victims don't fight back. They try to win back approval from their shamer. They seek validation from the very people who tore them down. This reaction makes them even more vulnerable to future manipulation. Today, social media has supercharged this phenomenon. A single misstep, an awkward joke, a poorly worded post can spark outrage. Within hours, thousands of strangers become judge, jury, and executioner. The bigger the crowd, the less anyone feels responsible. It becomes a digital mob, feeding on shame. Once someone is labeled as bad online, forgiveness is rare. But the real purpose of public shaming isn't just to punish the individual, it's to control the rest of us. It sends a clear message: step out of line, and this could happen to you. It enforces social norms, not because they're just or right, but because the fear of being humiliated is more powerful than the desire to resist. So, how do you protect yourself? Start by recognizing what public shaming is really about: control through fear. Once you see that, its grip begins to loosen. Refuse to play along. Stand your ground. Don't accept the guilt that's being forced on you. Because here's the hidden truth: public shaming only works if you believe you deserve it. And the moment you stop believing that, the power it holds over you disappears. The seeds of self-doubt. Sometimes all it takes is a single thought, a whisper in the back of the mind, to trap someone. That thought makes them question everything they once believed about themselves. The most dangerous form of control isn't physical force, it's psychological. It's the quiet planting of an idea. What if I'm not good enough? This is the strategy of sowing self-doubt, a subtle but devastating manipulation tactic. It doesn't destroy confidence in one blow. Instead, it slowly eats away at it, causing the person to second-guess their every move. And the cruelest part: once the seed is planted, most people end up watering it themselves. A powerful example of this can be seen in the Milgram experiment. While it's often cited to show blind obedience to authority, there's something even deeper happening. Participants weren't just pressured into hurting others. They were slowly led to doubt their own moral compass. At first, they resisted. But when the authority figure kept reassuring them, saying things like, "It's okay," "You must continue," they began to question their own instincts. Every time they hesitated and were met with calm encouragement, their resistance faded. Eventually, they convinced themselves that their initial hesitation had been wrong, that maybe they had overreacted. That's the power of self-doubt. It doesn't arrive loudly. It creeps in, often through repeated, calculated phrases. "Are you sure that's the right decision? That doesn't sound like you. You always mess things up." Over time, these phrases don't just sting, they take root. The brain starts searching for proof that maybe those doubts are true. And once that belief starts to form, confidence can collapse like a fragile house of cards. Skilled manipulators use this technique to control others without ever raising their voice. By causing someone to question themselves, they create dependency. The victim begins to seek validation from the very person who made them doubt in the first place. They lose faith in their own judgment and hand their power over to someone else, someone who seems to know better. This is how toxic relationships operate. It's how abusers maintain control. It's how cults keep followers loyal. And the most frightening part: even if the manipulator leaves, the self-doubt often stays. The seeds they planted continue to grow. That internal voice keeps whispering, "Maybe they were right about me." That's why this method is so dangerous. It doesn't just control people, it convinces them to break themselves from the inside out. Guilt tripping. No shouting, no arguments, no commands, just a subtle shift. And suddenly, you're the one feeling guilty. That's the power of guilt tripping and shame based manipulation. Psychological tools so effective, they can make someone act against their own interests without even realizing they've been controlled. The victim believes they're making their own decisions, but in truth, their emotions are being pulled like puppet strings. Think back. How many times have you done something not because you wanted to, but because you felt bad if you didn't? Maybe you said yes to a favor when you were already drained. Maybe you apologized for something that wasn't your fault. Or maybe you stayed in a harmful relationship because leaving felt selfish or cruel. That's guilt tripping in action, and it works frighteningly well. It starts subtly. The manipulator sows guilt by twisting situations just enough to make you feel responsible for their pain. A parent says, "After everything I've done for you, this is how you treat me?" A friend sighs, "I guess I just don't matter to you anymore." A partner laments, "I gave up so much for this relationship, and now you're just walking away." They don't demand anything outright. They don't need to, as the guilt speaks for them. But guilt isn't always enough. That's when shame steps in. While guilt makes you feel bad about something you did, shame makes you feel bad about who you are. It shifts from "you forgot my birthday" to "you're a terrible friend." From "you made a mistake" to "you're completely incompetent." When someone internalizes shame, they stop fighting. They don't just feel they messed up, they believe they are the problem. That belief gives the manipulator total control. Abusive partners, cult leaders, toxic bosses, they all use this technique, breaking someone down until they believe they're fundamentally flawed and forever in debt. Once that seed is planted, the victim stays. They say yes when they want to say no. They chase approval that always seems just out of reach. But the most unsettling part? Over time, we start guilt tripping ourselves. After hearing these messages enough, they become part of our inner voice. I shouldn't say no. I need to be better. I don't deserve to be happy. And once we begin shaming ourselves, the outside manipulator isn't even needed. The control becomes internal. So, how do you break free? Start by recognizing the pattern. Ask yourself, am I doing this because I genuinely want to? Or am I afraid of being seen as selfish, ungrateful, or disappointing? Am I accepting blame that doesn't belong to me? Am I chasing approval that never seems to arrive? When you start questioning the guilt, you weaken its hold. Because the truth is, no one else gets to define your worth. And the moment you reclaim that truth, the control begins to unravel. Love bombing. At first, the attention feels magical. The affection is overwhelming. You finally found someone who truly sees you, or so it seems. They shower you with praise, send constant messages, and insist you're unlike anyone they've ever met. It's intense, thrilling, almost unreal. And that's because it is. This is love bombing, a manipulative tactic designed to create emotional dependency before abruptly pulling away. It's not sincere love, it's a trap, a deliberate illusion. Love bombing manipulates your brain's reward system. The flood of admiration triggers dopamine, the same chemical linked to addiction. It gives you a high, one that feels too good to leave behind. And that's exactly the goal. In romantic relationships, it may show up as extravagant gifts, rushing intimacy, or dramatic declarations of love after only a short time. In friendships or professional settings, it might be over the top praise and instant connection that feels too good to be true. But the real manipulation happens after the high, when the warmth disappears, the constant messages stop, the compliments turn cold. What once felt like affection becomes criticism or emotional distance. And now the victim is left confused, desperate to get back what they once had. Instead of recognizing the manipulation, they blame themselves. They replay every moment, lower their boundaries, and try harder to fix things, not realizing the affection was never real to begin with. This cycle of overwhelming affection, followed by sudden emotional withdrawal, is a psychological trap. It's called intermittent reinforcement, the same principle that makes gambling addictive. You never know when the good moments will come back, so you keep trying, tolerating more and more mistreatment just to feel that early euphoria again. This tactic is used by narcissists in relationships, cult leaders to control followers, and even toxic workplaces to manipulate loyalty. The unpredictability creates emotional chaos, and while the victim is chasing the high, they don't realize how much power they've surrendered. By the time they recognize the pattern, they're already worn down, isolated, and filled with self-doubt. The illusion of choice. You believe you're in control, that every decision you make is your own. But what if I told you many of those choices were never truly yours to begin with? This is the illusion of choice, one of the most subtle and powerful psychological manipulations. It works by giving you just enough freedom to feel autonomous, while quietly steering you in a specific direction. Take a restaurant menu, for example. You sit down and choose between the steak, the pasta, or the salad. But have you ever asked why those were the only options available? Why not a burger? Why not sushi? The reality is, your range of choices was limited before you even opened the menu. Your decision wasn't as free as you thought. This technique is everywhere, from advertising and politics to everyday conversations. It's effective because we rarely question the options we're given. A classic example: supermarkets. You walk in for bread. You leave with snacks, soda, and a scented candle. That's not a coincidence. Stores are meticulously designed to guide your path, to nudge you toward impulse buys, all while making it seem like you're just casually shopping. You feel in control, but you're being subtly directed every step of the way. But this illusion doesn't stop at shopping. It seeps into our beliefs, our opinions, and even our values. Think of political debates. They often present just two clear sides, two tightly defined camps you're told to choose between. But behind that setup is a framework already built for you. By controlling the boundaries of the debate, those in power ensure that no matter which side you pick, the outcome still aligns with their goals. Marketers exploit this too. A product is offered in three versions: cheap, premium, and one perfectly priced in the middle. Most people pick the middle. It feels reasonable. But that just right option was placed there deliberately. Your choice was predicted. You were nudged, not deciding freely. This tactic becomes even more dangerous in personal relationships. Ever been told, "Do it my way or we're done"? That's not a real choice. It's manipulation disguised as compromise. You're cornered into picking one of the limited options, thinking you had a say when you were trapped from the start. The illusion of choice thrives on one assumption: that having some options equals true freedom. But genuine freedom isn't just about picking from a list. It's about asking who created the list in the first place. And the most chilling truth? The most skilled manipulators don't need to take your choices away. They only need to make you believe you had control.